Am I recording? Yep. Okay. Hi, guys. I have just a few things to say about Writing Project 4 as you all work on your rough drafts. Hopefully, I'm coming to you early enough to have a positive and helpful impact on these first drafts. If not, you can let me know in the comments. First, I will say that I noticed when going over your third writing projects that some of you all were thinking a little too generally about your topics. What you all have right now, many of you, is more a subject than a topic. Subjects are general and topics are specific. Some of you all were, for example, thinking and writing generally about transgender issues, racism, discrimination. These are all really general things. They're subjects. I want you all to think about what specifically you are discussing about these subjects by taking what you proposed you would write about in Writing Project 3 and adding an "and" phrase to it. What about that subject will you discuss and argue? To make sure you have a properly narrowed topic, you can think of asking and answering a few general questions about it. Who, what, when, where questions. So, for example, what are you talking about specifically? Who is involved? When is your topic relevant and occurring? And where is it occurring? Here's some examples of a few topics with these "and" phrases attached to them. One would be racism and the portrayal of non-white people in TV series, racism and government policy decisions in the United States, transgender discrimination and the workplace, discrimination against women and the American home life or American household culture. So these are all they sound academic, and they are, but they sound academic because they're really specific, and academic papers tend to be like really specific when they're argumentative. If you're worried that you can get too specific, don't be. You probably won't get too specific. Also think of it this way. I think about your topic this way. If you're talking just about racism or just about discrimination, you have to talk about everything regarding those things, and that's a lot. In reality, because you don't have that much time or space in which to do this last writing project, you have to be more specific so that you don't give yourself too many things to talk about and end up rambling all over the place and being too broad. So you want to think about what kind of racism you're talking about, what kind of discrimination, and who is affected by it. I also think it would be helpful for you guys as you write to think about the kinds of argument papers that you're writing, like categories. So I'm going to give you 3 categories of argument paper that will hopefully help you think about the overall goal of your argument in your paper. The hope here is that if you have an overall goal in mind, you'll be able to keep your paper more focused and organized. So these 3 categories are problem solution, problem origin, and cause and effect. So you want to ask yourself, is my overall goal in this paper to describe a problem and propose a solution to it, to explain the origin of a problem, in other words, where it came from, or to explain the cause and effect relationship of your topic? For example, what is the unintended effect of catcalling, which you could say is a kind of discrimination? I want to let you all know, too, that when you're thinking about the scope or the goal of your papers and your overall goals for them, you don't have to, heal the world and make it a better place, Michael Jackson reference. Some of you all in your annotated bibliographies proclaimed to have some pretty lofty goals for your argument papers, such as discussing the cure for poverty or the cure for racism. These are pretty tall orders. You guys aren't expected to solve world problems, and actually wouldn't recommend trying. If poverty still exists, it's because out of all of the intelligent people in the world who've come up with all of these great ideas for eradicating poverty, none of them's worked. Like, nobody else's great ideas have worked out yet, right? So instead, I want you guys to try to be more practical. Maybe instead of trying to heal the world or come up with some grand solution to what seems like an age-old or a larger-than-life problem, you can instead do your part by maybe trying to come up with a practical solution to a difficult problem within a particular community. Lastly, I'll say a couple of things about organization and just name a few pitfalls that you want to try to avoid in your rough drafts. Organization-wise, it's important to build your case, or your argument, that is, with main points. Typically, you want to devote each body paragraph to only one main point, and you want that main point to be backed by research. Then, you want to connect that research and its discussion back to your thesis to help reinforce the thesis. Each body paragraph will pretty much follow that same formula. Main point, introduction of research, discussion of research, and connection of it to your thesis. You can think of a main point, if you like, as a reason that you're right about your thesis, and then think about how to support that reason and show your audience that you're right about your thesis. You don't want to make more than one main point per paragraph, really, because it will feel like you're not focusing and you're not working deeply enough or hard enough to defend each main point. You want to get, length a lot of the time indicates depth, like how deep you're willing to go to prove this point. As far as how much room your research should take up, which is a common question, you want it to be like a 60-40, 70-30, or 75-25% balance, where the higher number is your voice, your discussion, your argument, and the lower number is your actual research. So 60% you, 40% research, or 75% you, 25% research. Remember that you are the one making this argument in your paper. Your research is just there to back you up. So if you don't take up at least half of your paper with you and your voice and your discussion, it likely means that you aren't spending enough of your time and your energy discussing your research and showing how it supports your argument, which is really the major goal of the paper. And finally, here are some common pitfalls that I see in rough and final drafts that I really want you guys to avoid. Some of them, especially the last ones, can get you into a lot of trouble. I don't want to see that happen to you guys, so please take care with the following things. First pitfall, not taking a strong enough stance. You want to have a clear, debatable argument that you defend in every paragraph of your paper. Do not be shy about stating your opinion, or not being pushy or sassy or whatever. You're staking a claim on something. You think you're right about something, fight hard to defend it. Second pitfall is, like I've already discussed, being too broad in your discussion. If you're too broad, you wind up just writing a paper sounding like Captain Obvious, like saying something like racism is bad, discrimination is bad, or having a paper that's just informative when it needs to be argumentative. It needs to be opinion-based. Another pitfall is arguing for or doing the impossible. Remember that you can't solve poverty or discrimination by writing this paper. Think smaller. Another pitfall, having too much background information. This is a very, very common one. Background information is information that your readers need to know in order to follow your argument. You don't need to go on for days with background information. You probably, for example, don't need to define every little term or say which presidents have been in office since your topic began to arise, or what year everything was founded. You think about the need to know info, and then don't let it exceed 3/4 of a page of your paper, somewhere around your introduction. Another pitfall is forgetting the counter-argument. For reasons I will explain in a later post, the counter-argument is hugely important. Include it. Basically, if you don't include it, you look like a chump. I'll say a little more about it within the next week, but basically when you're trying to win an argument, the last thing you want is to look like a chump. And last but not least, do not put sources in your works cited page that you do not actually use in your paper, and vice versa. Do not put a source in your paper that does not appear in your works cited page. This is actually a form of plagiarism because it looks like you're claiming to use sources that you're not actually using. So that's pretty much all the pitfalls you want to avoid. Other than that, like you can't really go wrong in these rough drafts. I'll give you like a fair amount of credit for them if you're giving what the assignment basically asks for. So make sure you read through it carefully. Get in touch with me if you have questions. This is it. This is your last paper for the course. You want to give it all you got because why not? And again, I hope you'll reach out to me if I can help you along at all in this last stretch. Take care and good luck, and I'll be talking to you all again soon about your counter arguments.